Well, President Obama's new budget calls for a spending freeze and cuts in domestic programs. But the bottom line is there will still be big deficits both in the long term and the short term. Hans Nichols is in Washington. He has more on the story. Hans.
Deirdre, good morning. Deficits as far as the eye can see, and the president falls short of the very instructions he gave to his own deficit commission just a few months ago. At the same time, Secretary Geithner has been briefing bond dealers that interest on the debt will rise to 3.1% of GDP in 5 years. That's up from 1.3% in 2010. That's according to a presentation given to a 13-member committee. Low borrowing costs may be over. Now, according to White House documents that were released just minutes ago, the deficit for this year, 2011, is $1.6 trillion. That's up from $1.4 trillion that the administration had previously estimated. That's mostly due to the tax extensions bill that was passed in December. Now, next year, the president projects a deficit of $1.1 trillion. That's the fourth consecutive year of deficits over $1 trillion. Then in year two of this budget, the deficit drops to $768 billion. Then it gets into the $600 billion range. The total deficit spending over that 5-year period is $3.67 trillion. Now, as a percentage of GDP, that means it's 7% this year, and then it gets down to 3% in year 5. Now, the president will also plan to cut some $1.1 trillion in spending over 10 years. He will also, Deirdre, propose user fees to help the CFTC carry out derivatives oversight. That's part of the $308 million request for that agency.
And I mean, Hans, what are the prospects of all this happening on Capitol Hill?
Deirdre, budgets are always one part notional, 2 parts aspirational, and a little bit fictional because they rest on the assumption that the president's wishes will become law. That never happens, even with a Congress that's controlled by your own party, and it's not the case now. But you take a look at some of the president's wish lists. He wants to eliminate $46 billion for oil, gas, and coal companies. He proposed that last year. It didn't go anywhere. There's 1 million electrical vehicles that he wants by 2025. $53 billion for high-speed rail over the next 6 years, and $50 billion in seed money for a national infrastructure bank. Matt, this is an opening bid. It's an enunciation of priorities. All this will have to be milled, mulled, and perhaps rejected by a Republican House of Representatives.